morning, everybody. Excellent. Wow, some oldies but goldies there in our song collection this time. That's wonderful. Excellent. So if you could kindly switch over to... So I want to share a little bit about part of our preparation, I suppose, for this very boomy here. Are you okay? Maybe it's just my voice, naturally. Right. So preparation for this, upcoming events. We already saw a magnificent whooshing video today, right, about the Chonwon-gung and the opening of this. It's well underway. It won't be really ready for visitors in all places, but sometime down the line, you'll be able to go there as a place of pilgrimage, and it'll be very, very wonderful, I'm sure. So first of all, it's an unusual picture, maybe. This is probably what most people who've ever lived since the beginning of human history have seen, the most common scene, right? This is just some nature. It's an African plain. There's sky and there's earth with some vegetation, right? So most people would have experienced this, and that would be their outlook. And these two elements, there's sky and there's earth, these became very instrumental in trying to understand our human condition. So from very early on, people started to think that the sky there, the blue sky, represents heaven. And it has something of a heaven about it because, it's very beautiful. It's slightly elusive. You can't reach up and take a handful of sky. It doesn't work. So that's something to aim for. And the sun is there, the life is coming from there, the rain is coming from there. And then there's earth, and we need the earth as well. Earth is good, right? It gives the food and the crops, and the animals feed there. But it's also dirty. So when you plunge your hand into the earth, it comes out, dirty. So this is the kind of reality, but you can grab hold of it. So these became a kind of analogy, right, for heaven and earth spiritually. So heaven is up there, always we think, but yet we know it's not really up there. And earth is somehow tied in with things that are base, or rather, unpleasant or sinful or not so good. So as a result, you'll find in many, many cultures, almost universally, people started to separate out certain parts of the earth, certain land, to make it holy, more like heaven, right? So they would make a distinction between the sacred and the profane, between something which is holy, or an area that is holy. And to go in that area, you need to be holy. Maybe you have to have good thoughts, or you need to take your shoes off, or you need to say a prayer before you go, or put down your weapons and this kind of thing. So it would be a little distinction there. So I don't know if you've seen one of these. This is the bighorn medicine wheel, and these were made by Native Americans. So it's just marking out on the ground there with stones and circles and posts, and but you would go there if you wanted to recover from some illness or find some healing, whether it's internal, things that are troubling you internally, or even externally. If you need some healing, you would go and you would receive it when you went there. This was the belief and the kind of practice. And these still survive in various places. So that is a very, very clear example of something marked out for that kind of purpose. It becomes, in a way, a holy ground. And interestingly, if you find the instructions for making a holy ground that belonged to a Native American tradition. It's very much like our unificationist holy ground procedure of kind of walking north, south, and east and west, and sanctifying the area. Here's another holy place. Wow, imagine turning the corner and seeing this, right? This is Mount Kailash. You'd have to go to Tibet to see this. And although it looks very tempting to any climber, nobody has ever climbed it. Why is that? Because it's a holy mountain and you're not allowed to climb it. So as far as we know, nobody's ever done that. At least it's not possible now to do that. But you can make a pilgrimage around the whole base of the mountain. It's 32 miles. So a 32-mile pilgrimage, and it takes most people 1 month to do that. Why does it take so long? Because all the way that you're going around, you're making full bows. So this is some kind of act of devotion, isn't it? And then you can easily imagine that by doing that, then this mountain becomes more kind of holy in your mind and more revered and more precious because of that. It's quite a different sacred space, right? This, you have to go to Japan, you have to go to Kyoto. Anybody from Kyoto here? Yes. No, oh, you're just for the day, right? She's from Kyoto for the day. That's good, right? So this is the Golden Temple, very beautiful, very serene, a kind of different approach, isn't it, right? To build this and construct a very peaceful, ordered garden and beautifully gold-covered wood building, exquisite little gem sitting there. So you could feel also this is a very holy place to visit and be part of. On the other side of Kyoto, you can go to some gardens, the Tofukuji Garden, and that's in the temple there. This caused quite a stir when it was first displayed because it's quite modern, and people were not sure that it was the right thing to do. I mean, it wouldn't worry you or I probably, but it was quite, a new approach. And their philosophy, it's all written into the choice of materials and the choice of plants. So here, it's a move from a kind of chessboard, which is very ordered, into a kind of wild nature and the disorder of nature, which is there. It's like saying both are good and both are kind of connected. So that's again, a very peaceful place to go and to experience. You want some more pictures? It's pictures this morning, right? This is a scene in Vietnam, actually. Just to choose a random choice here, and there are many better and greater examples, but I'm just picking out a few things of what we consider as sacred spaces. In Vietnam, there are more than 15,000 temples and pagodas, and some built in seemingly impossible places like this. So to build such a statue or such a pagoda on top of a mountain takes even more devotion, doesn't it? Because you have to lug everything up there. You have to take all the materials up there, and it's difficult. But people do that willingly, and the result is something which is breathtaking and really, you want to go and experience. Here's quite a different approach. Wow, a little more modern. This is the Baha'i Lotus Temple, and you'll find this outside the city of Delhi in India, and it's built on the kind of concept of a lotus flower and has a beautiful reflecting pool. So you can imagine in the heat there, you want to go and you want to, experience the cool and the quiet and the holiness inside. So I'd love to visit that someday. Here's another interesting temple. Can you guess where this is? Hindu temple. This is in Neasden in North London. Yeah. Neasden always gets a laugh. I don't know why. But I think the skies give it away, really. It's not India, but it was, carved in India and brought across piece by piece and reassembled by craftsmen. So when you turn the corner of quite an ordinary street in North London, you're met with this, exquisite Hindu temple. I remember taking a party of school children there, my teaching days. So, yes, very, very interesting, very wonderful. But again, into every little block is carved, there's a lot of heart and devotion, or chonsong, as we say, put into each one. And every country, every part of our country has its own kind of holy places. If you go to Ireland in County Donegal, this is St. Patrick's Purgatory in a lake called Loch Derg. And that's probably the most holy site in Ireland. And it's, somebody had to build that. Again, not an easy place to build on an island. And they have, regular retreats. You can go there, you can have a weekend. It costs quite a bit to go, and you start the first night, you don't sleep, you walk around the whole lake, and you do a 24-hour fast. And you have to pass by the monastery as they're kind of cooking bacon in the morning. And it's, it's really, I thought we should ourselves make an organization called Indemnitours, right? Because I think we do very well. I think people will pay quite good money, to go and have an indemnity holiday, right? Because naturally people feel, by doing that, I can be renewed. I can find my connection with God. I can, really show my seriousness and get rid of all the kind of day-to-day nonsense that I'm having to deal with and go back to something precious. So there's a strong desire in everybody to do this. This is Iona, a little smaller, but it's a very holy place in the outer or inner Hebrides. I apologize, the inner Hebrides. But quite an effort to get there, and many people make this pilgrimage, and it becomes, very wonderful and holy experience when you visit there. Here's another place. Can you guess where this is? Yes, it's Watford Peace Garden, which our members have been, very involved in setting up, and with local funding as well, to make this. It's a theme which you can find in other places, cathedral floors and various parts of the world, like a little maze in which you can walk and pray. So you're kind of using some bit of concentration about the way that you're going at the same time as offering your prayer and your devotion. So these are just some little examples, right, of sacred spaces. So when you look at sacred space, or when scholars, academics examine sacred space which exists in every culture, in every part of the world, in every kind of era of history, there's always been this kind of tradition of setting certain places aside as sacred. When you look at the conclusions of these people who are working in whether it's sociology or anthropology, connected to religion, then they come up with certain principles or conclusions that every such sacred space has certain qualities. And they list them this way. They say, first of all, it acts as a center point. And not only for people to congregate, but it kind of marks out like a spiritual center. So people know that and they will go there. It's like going to the main place or the most holy place. It also, they use the term meeting point, because these form a kind of recognized conjunction between the spiritual realm and the physical realm, right? And people know that. When you go there, that's where you experience. You're kind of a little bit leaving the physical world behind, your day-to-day world, but also you're encountering a kind of reality of the spiritual world more forcefully, and how they intertwine, how they work together. Also, they say that these sacred spaces are microcosms. So they contain all things. And when you go to some of them, they really do contain all things. If you look at the carving, say on a Hindu temple, something like that, or there's one chapel in Ireland, in Maynooth, which is Main Catholic priest training center. If you want to be a priest, you'll go there and you'll study and be ordained by going through that. And in the chapel, this very fascinating building, all around, it's like every animal is there, carved in stone, monkeys and crocodiles, and it's like, because all nature is there. This is the physical world, and it's also a place with a very high and decorated ceiling, which is like looking up to heaven. And that was a tradition in the great cathedrals of Europe, right? You'll see carving way up there. It's not really for you to look at. It's there for God to see. That's why it's there. And if you look on the backs of the seats, which they have in the choir stalls, often there's carving there. And again, day to day, nobody sees it, but it's there because it's for the devotion of God, and God sees those things. So this kind of mind you'll find common in much church building and cathedral building, this kind of idea. So again, our academics kind of look at these different places, just like the photos that we saw earlier, as all having these things in common. They're a center, they're a meeting point, they're a microcosm, and they're a place of immanent transcendent presence, which is, means essentially that, God is both with us, near us, and in us, and very kind of real to us, but also above us and beyond us and bigger than the universe. It's an extraordinary kind of a paradox, or something that you can't really get your head around, can you? Because God is, God is concerned about me, little old me. Well, I'm told that and I feel that, but also God is, creator of the whole universe, which is bigger than I can imagine. It's just so huge and vast, and that's God. So God is immanent, very close by, or present to us, and transcendent, above everything else. So remember these 4 points, okay? Because this is how the world analyzes all these cultural expressions of sacred space, wherever they exist. In the Bible, at the time of the Exodus, then we have, as Moses is leading people through the desert, we have God saying, let them build me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. God is saying, I want to dwell with my people. Build me a sanctuary. This is the kind of origins of the tabernacle, this portable temple, which the Jews had, right? And you'll know some of the debates that went on. Some people said, well, God can't be contained in a building. That's the kind of transcendent God. So what's the point of building a building? And yet, when you built such a building and treated it as holy, then you really felt God's presence there. So God was there and God wasn't there. It's an interesting, again, response, but there are two views because of this idea of an immanent, transcendent God. And this is a kind of early example of the Kevin Costner philosophy, right? If you build it, he will come. So if you build it, he will come. So God is almost saying, well, build this, and here are the materials that you have to use, and this is what it should be like. All the instructions coming through Revelation, and then people built it, and then they felt this is really holy. So this is a model of what the tabernacle would have looked like, and it becomes the model for the physical temple, the stone temple, when that is built. So You have under the tent at the brown tent at the back is the most holy place. And inside the kind of ring of posts and struts, that's the holy place. You have a holy place and a most holy place. And the holy place is where, priests are making the offerings. And the most holy place is where, in his day, just Moses would go in, right? And he would talk to God and bring his questions there and receive answers and judgment and come out. And he'd tell Aaron, and Aaron would tell everybody, right? This is what God says. So there was a feeling there, which was accepted by every kind of faithful person amongst the group, was that, God is there. And when Moses goes in there, he's meeting God, right? And this becomes a kind of awesome thing, right? If you're not meant to be there, you'd never go there, right? And interestingly, when it becomes a temple, then very much the tradition is that it's only the high priest who goes in that most holy place. And he only does that once a year, right? And you might know the tradition was that they would tie a rope around the high priest's ankle. You can guess why? Because God forbid he should die when he's in there. Nobody would want to go in and bring him out. So you would pull him out, right? So, interesting, right? So that was saying something about the feeling that people had towards this holy place. They become awesome. This kind of feeling of the numinous, sometimes it's called, or the awesomeness of a place where when you go there, you will be in God's presence, So when holy buildings are built, people have different ways of kind of reacting to that and expressing that. Some traditions say, well, before you go in, you have to wash yourself, even ritually, like you do before going into a mosque. Or some people will say you have to cover your head. Others will say you have to take your hat off, right? It doesn't really matter if your hat is on or off. It's just being, doing what the tradition expects you to do to keep that kind of reverence, isn't it? Some of you probably went to the Nepi pilgrimages, right, in the Middle East. I went on one of those. It was an amazing experience. But every morning, because we were going out to visit different holy sites of Judaism, of Islam, of Christianity, and we'd kind of look at each other and say, is this a hat on or a hat off place, right? Oh, it's hats on for women and it's hats off for men. And, you'd have to know before you go, because, if I need a hat, I have to have it with me, right? So you'd have to find out. And of course, it's not that, wearing a hat is right or wrong. It's again, how do people interpret it as being a sign of deep respect, and which have they settled on really to do? Okay, so we had a fairly longish reading this morning, this section of the principle. So I'm going to refer back to that now. In the unification principle, it does say that, interestingly, the tabernacle and the temple, which we had a little look at, is a symbolic Messiah. For me, as far as I know, that's really like a revelation, because I haven't come across it anywhere else. And I think it's a very deep insight. God is giving this, or saying, build this, and I will dwell with you, because the tabernacle is a symbolic Messiah, and the temple is a symbolic Messiah, a more substantial one in a way, because it's in one place, and people can come and they can visit, and it's bigger and it's more impressive, and it becomes internationally kind of known as a place to go to. The temple would have looked something like this just prior to Jesus' day, and it went through some renovations, interestingly, just before 15 years or so before he was born. So getting ready, I would say, for the coming of the substantial temple, which is the Messiah. So this is a symbolic temple. And as such, God is giving it to the Jewish people so that they can receive some training, right? They receive a kind of practice. So you attend the temple, you have these feelings of awe, you respect it, it's the very center of your faith, it's the heart of your community, it's working in this way, it's where, you know, somewhere that is where you can experience God's presence, and you have to repent before you go there, and maybe a priest, you know, you're engaging to make some sacrifice on your behalf to atone for your sins. And it becomes a kind of functioning object, the center of their devotion, right? So very fascinating. And essentially, it's training people to receive the Messiah. So all of this devotion and feeling of attending the temple should be transferred to the Messiah when the Messiah comes. So this is already a very kind of early understanding that, you know, Jesus should have been received as the Messiah, as the expected Savior, by the Jewish people, because all this training was there towards a symbolic Messiah, so that when the substantial Messiah comes, that can all be transferred and given to him. So, you know, you can think that there was in the Christmas story. Do you remember the story of Simeon and Anna? And, you know, parents bring the baby Jesus there. It's a regular thing to do. It's a kind of gratitude to present the baby at the temple. And Simeon and Anna both have revelations that this child is a very special child. And, you know, they tell the parents are almost a little bit surprised, right? But it's an interesting story there, because I think back to the other reading that we had, was the story of Hannah. Do you know that story? It's a very beautiful, very touching story. So there's this woman who couldn't have a child for 19 years. She was barren. So she went to the priest Eli and prayed, had him pray with her, and stood next to him as he prayed for her to have a child. And then, lo and behold, she became pregnant and she gave birth. And she had said, you know, if I have a child, I will give this child to the Lord. And so after so many years without a child, she has a child. And then what does she want to do? She wants to, as soon as that child is weaned, she wants to take this boy and give it to the temple, essentially, right? For education there, to be part of the temple life. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? Because, you know, you would think after wanting a child so much, you want to hold on to that child. That would be natural kind of response, and quite understandable. You know, it would be the most precious thing to you, and God honored your prayer. But she's of a different mind, that thinks, well, because God gave me, I want to give this child back to God. And that child, of course, grows up, is Samuel, and becomes, you know, the last of the judges who crowns the first king of Israel, Saul. So he's grown up with that kind of education in the temple. So why I mentioned the Simeon and Anna story is I often think, well, maybe that was an opportunity for Mary to say, well, this child, we'll bring him back and he can be raised in the temple. Because there was already this precedent. Samuel was raised that way. Maybe Jesus could have been raised that way, in which case, you know, in this building, he would have had a kind of set of rooms or a little apartment, and he could receive, when he was grown up, he could receive dignitaries, and people from foreign countries would come there, and he would teach from there, and people would come and hear, and he would gain the best kind of insights and knowledge from other teachers and other learned people. And, this would be his home and his office, right? So I think it should have been working that way. And then the symbolic temple and the substantial temple, they'd absolutely meet each other and really fulfill that function. So as it was, when Jesus came towards the end of his life, we've just been through Holy Week and Easter time, haven't we? Then he entered the temple courts and he began to drive out those who were selling there, right? He becomes so enraged because this holy place is being defiled by people who are just out to make money, essentially. They're money changers. They're taking advantage of all the foreign tourists who are coming, and they want to buy their, animal for their offering, etc. So they jump up the price, and exchange rates being what they are, they always make a little profit, right? I remember reading an article about somebody who had £300, and they went around Europe, not spending that money, but just changing it. And in the end, they had nothing, right? because every money changer makes a little bit, right? And they have to do that. That's their job. But not in the temple. That's not the point. They shouldn't be taking advantage like that. And on the way in the Mark version of the story, it says, as Jesus is coming to the temple, he began to teach them, and he declared, "Is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations," plural, right? Nations, yes. He saw it as a place of prayer for all nations, not just for Israel, that people would come and they would offer their prayers and devotions there. But you have made it a den of robbers, he said. So that was why he went to the extreme of causing a commotion and, of course, putting himself in danger by doing that. But it was just his heart. Why? I would say because he knew the connection between the temple and himself. And he was coming as a substantial temple. He referred to himself that way when he's, I will build this temple and knock it down and build it again in 3 days. He was talking about himself. So the violation of the temple was the violation of himself. And already he was being rejected and defiled and mistreated. So he saw it happening to the building as well. Okay, so when we go back to that section of divine principle we looked at this morning, it says that a true person, a person who has fulfilled the 3 blessings, who is there, or at least the first blessing is there standing as a person who is like God's temple, right? In whose God's Spirit's dwelling. So this person is defined as a ruler of the universe because you're in that central position, and God placed human beings to be in that position, to be subject over the rest of creation and the spirit world. And that person is a mediator, a ruler and a mediator between the spiritual and physical realms, able to act as the one who can feel and experience and sense the beauty of the physical world, and by responding to that can transfer those feelings and that appreciation to God, who's only in the spiritual world in that way. So God is able to experience more of this world through such true human beings as mediators. And such a person is a microcosm. They are a model in themselves. Each one of you are, because you have a spirit and a body, you are there with all those spiritual elements and physical elements, a substantial model of the whole cosmos. And we use the term cosmos to mean spiritual realm and physical realm, right? Everybody with me? So finally, it describes this true person as a center of harmony between the physical and spiritual worlds. Actually, it goes on to express it very beautifully. Did you know that tuning forks are mentioned in the divine principle? Like the air that enables 2 tuning forks to resonate with each other, for the physicists amongst you, It's interesting it says 2 tuning forks. I thought it was a mistake. It just meant the 2 prongs of the tuning fork. But you can get sympathetic resonance between 2 tuning forks. And, you know, but I just brought one along with me because I carry it around with me. Don't you carry a tuning fork? No? Oh, okay. We can try it afterwards in case the experiment doesn't work, right? This is the tuning fork. Everybody know this? They're becoming rare now because it's all digital nowadays. So God gave knees for this purpose. It's an A. Can you hear it still? It goes on a long time. Isn't it amazing? It's like getting a lot out of a little. Just a little hit, but you get a long, long note coming from that. Because these 2, they vibrate together at exactly the right frequency. So here, oh, I didn't read all of that, did I? The ability, or a true person acts as the mediator and center of harmony between the 2 worlds. The ability to communicate between the 2 worlds may also be likened to a radio or a television, which transforms invisible waves into perceptible images and sounds. So a person can thus accurately convey the realities of the spirit world to the physical world. So it has human beings in this central position, and you know, they're like the air that vibrates when a tuning fork is struck, and they should enable the 2 worlds to resonate together. Something like this, okay? So it produces pulses of sound, but it only does that when these 2 are, you know, absolutely mirroring each other. That's why I think it's a good analogy for saying man is made in God's image, because when we're in that image, there can be that kind of resonance or vibration between the 2. But if you imagine a tuning fork with one prong was bent, right, and you struck it, it wouldn't make any sound, right? Nothing. But it's only because they're kind of mirroring each other that you get that sound in the right distance apart as well. So, you know, interesting. That's used as an analogy in divine principle, tuning forks. So remember our academics and their 4 points, right? We had this kind of theory of sacred space, that a sacred space acts as a center, a meeting point, a microcosm, and an immanent transcendent presence. And then when we look at the principle, it says a true person acts this way, as a ruler of the universe or center, as a mediator, as a substantial microcosm, and as the center of harmony between the 2 worlds. So almost kind of parallel understanding from the academic world about how sacred space works, including the temple, and divine principle, how a true person, you know, what the characteristics of a true person are. So I think that the important conclusion of this is not only that the tabernacle and the temple, which are there as a central part of Jewish history, not only are they a symbolic or image of the Messiah to come, but they have a similar function. They work in the same way. So this is even more kind of, you know, why we could see that the temple is like a precursor or is preparing people. So if they relate to the temple as they're meant to, then they just need to transfer all that devotion, all that love, all that attendance to the Messiah when the Messiah comes, and do it even more, right? Because this is the Messiah. This is the one we've been waiting for. This is the substantial temple. It says in Matthew 26, finally 2 came forward and declared, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Well, he was talking about himself as the temple, but it became a point of accusation they use this as one of the arguments as to why he should be put to death, because he was making such claims. How dare you? But in the end, the temple is just a building. And this is the real substantial temple of God in Jesus. And then we have St. Paul, famous quotation in 1 Corinthians. He says, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit lives in you?" He's encouraging people to have their own genuine, free relationship with God, not just be bound by laws and old kind of restrictions of the past, but actually enjoy this freedom that comes through putting your faith in God, just as Abraham did, he says. So it's nothing new, but we have to rediscover that kind of freedom. So at that moment, the moment of Jesus' death, one of the interesting phenomena which took place, apart from 3 hours of darkness, was there an eclipse or what happened? Anyway, it's a chilling fact, isn't it? If in the middle of the day everything goes dark, which is also very ominous. It's not hardly a joyful thing or a wonderful thing. It shows how tragic, the crucifixion was. But also, at that moment of the crucifixion, the curtain of the temple was torn in two. That's that solid curtain that divided the most holy place from the holy place. And it's split in two from top to bottom. So the earth shook and the rocks were split, it says. There was these kind of physical phenomena, extraordinary, especially this big curtain just ripping on its own was like a violation of that most holy place, which of course mirrored the violation of Jesus' body being, put on the cross. So this was kind of parallel, if you like, and showing the connection between these two. Well, after 70 AD, of course, temple is destroyed. This is the only remaining part of it. When you go to Jerusalem, you can pray at the so-called Wailing Wall, because that's the place to pray, and Jews will be there praying and putting prayers on paper in the cracks in the wall. I remember when I went there, I was asked, I wanted to pray at the wall, but I was stopped by some security person, and their question was, "Are you Jewish?" Because implication was, if I'm not, I can't go there. Yeah? So I just said, "My name is Hannah," and he let me through. Yeah, I didn't. Echoes of Star Wars, if anybody knows that, These are not the droids you're looking for, right? Yeah, I mean, I didn't tell an untruth, right? I told the truth. My name is Hannah. There we go. So that is where, their tradition is. That's where the Spirit of God left the temple, came through this wall, and hopefully they're waiting for it to be reconstructed. So finally, just want to mention the new developments which are going on here in the HJ Chonwon or Chongpyeong area. It's becoming very busy. Every time I go there, it's something new, and there'll be new buildings and new activities there. As we saw in the film, they're building as Chonwon Gung, which is a very a building with many aspects to it, sculpture gardens, cafes, restaurants, offices, headquarters for our various Chonulguk departments, all kinds of things, as well as the kind of inner sanctum or holy place, which is built for our heavenly parent and for us to kind of experience coming into God's presence in that way. In a kind of new time when it's not so distinct, I think, the purpose is much more unified purpose. People will be visiting there and having just a joyful and happy experience, as well as a deep and profound one. They'll be able to do things just like a wonderful day out, So it's interesting kind of coming together of these aspects. When I was there, and my wife has to remind me when it was last year?
Last year, April.
in April of last year. Then we were there for the first of its kind of openings or dedications for this building, and I was really puzzling, you know, what is this for, or, you know, what my own feelings towards this building. And I was a little bit of kind of confused mind about it, but I thought, well, best thing to do is to pray about it, right? Because we're in Chongpyong after all, and so it's a place to do that. And when I prayed, God gave me a very clear vision. I saw the place absolutely full of people. More than this, I saw it full of people, especially all the women in bright dresses, you know, traditional Korean dresses. But I noticed that these dresses were all short, which is the style that they have not in South Korea, but in North Korea. So in this vision, the whole place was filled up with North Koreans coming. And I thought, this kind of makes sense actually now. This is a typical picture of North Korea. There you have everybody out celebrating, and their kind of antithesis to, or equivalent to Chongpyong area there. That's Pyongyang. And I saw all these kind of crowds of people coming that were demonstrably, they were North Koreans. And then I thought, yes, actually, you know, sometime soon, hopefully, this division between South and North is going to disappear. And if you know, it's a time when true parents themselves are not physically with us, then how are those liberated people in North Korea going to catch quickly what's happening and who true parents are and what this whole tradition is? Are they going to read a book? I don't think so. Is the government going to tell them? I don't think so. Right? You know, how are they going to find out? Are they going to sit and hear a lecture? I don't think by that time, you know, that's the best way to do it. But come to a place like the Chonwon-gung and you will experience, you know, have a whole experience. You'll have the museum there, you'll find out about a true parent's life, you'll experience the things that they experience, go on the boat around the lake, and you'll see pictures of them, you know, in their honeymoon period, having, you know, on the boat in the lake, and it'll all start to tie in together, really, to really put across, just in a day, who true parents are and that they're my true parents, you know. So I imagine for North Koreans, there's going to be a huge void in their life when they understand, you know, how they've been misled, right? And how the things they put their devotion in is actually false. So how to help them? I think this is part of the strategy. That may be just my theory, but if it helps you also to understand the value of such a place and a building, then I offer that to you. It's certainly, you know, these are still architect's plans here, but we saw in the film, it's shaping up to be very much like this. And this is the inner sanctum. And, you know, finally, you know, if we turn to true parents' words, you know, such a building project is not unconnected from my own inner state. You know, I have to have the right inner state to go there and to be in the temple and to be able to go into sacred space like that. Here is a father in the Pyeonghwa-gyeong saying, if you live a life of sincere prayer and devotion for 3 to 5 years, you can liberate your mind from the body's horizontal and habitual influence. 3 to 5 years, that's quite a judgment for me, right? I don't know about you, right? It could have been done in 3 to 5 years. Still working on it is the answer. Still in need of special grace and of, you know, these kind of times of renewal. And Father said, when you go to the repair shop, which is how he often referred to religion as, you cannot stay there forever. Amen? You need to come out reborn. While the religious life is a required course for all humankind, it's not the basic purpose or the whole purpose of life. No, we have to graduate from that eventually and just enjoy life as it was meant to be enjoyed. in a pure example, whereby like the whole earth is holy ground, not just a little bit that's sectioned out to be, even though we may have our most holy places to go to, but still it all should become holy ground. And from now on, people will gradually come to perceive God and to understand the spirit world. This is part of that progress towards, becoming a true man, true woman, a person who has become spiritually mature. To understand the spirit world and the works of spirit people. People will become conscious of their internal person, their spirit self, and their spirituality will develop. And I feel Father talking very genuinely about people, right? It's not just about church members or a certain group of people. It's generally, humankind will go through this awakening that Father said was sure to happen in the 21st century, right? So this is, I believe, bound to happen. And here the final quotation to leave with you. People who change their character to fit the way of heaven are the true people of God's hope. Brothers and sisters, I think that's all of you. That's everybody who's participating in this special grace and everybody who's preparing for this very holy time that we're about to share together. Please join me in prayer. Our loving Heavenly Parents, we thank you so much for leading all humankind. And you've been doing this in every culture, in every nation, in every era. You have never not been there. You've always been there, and people have sensed you. People have sought you. People have sought to improve themselves and come closer to your ideal and to become more in your image, that we can resonate together as we were intended to do in the beginning. And we all can become these kind of center points, these centers of harmony, these rulers and places where you can see in spiritual and physical worlds interacting in a beautiful way. Father, we want to make our own determination at this time to renew ourselves, to keep going on this path and to come closer to you step by step. We thank you. We pray for all the work that's going on in Korea at this time for these Holy Day celebrations. It's an enormous amount of work. We want to share and support our brothers and sisters as best we can in whatever way we can, and make this a really amazing place where people can come and they can instantly and very quickly they can understand the legacy which true parents are leaving to the world through their extraordinary life and their total commitment to the will of God. We thank you. We want to offer our gratitude and pray that you can strengthen us and guide us as we go forward. This I pray on behalf of brothers and sisters here in my name, David Hanna of the Blessed Central Family, our Jew.